So, there is a simplicity to the true being that you are. More simple than can be imagined. Cannot be known with the mind, cannot be understood. And yet, this simple being that you are is always here, always here. Under the play on the surface of life, there is a simple presence, and this presence is who you are. It is just to be here now. There is nothing to understand. There is nothing to get. It is about being simple, being so incredibly simple that you meet your simple self right here, that you meet your simple, pristine self right here now, in this moment, just as you are. Ever present, boundless freedom is the true nature, is who you are in truth. There is a purity and a simplicity in just being. It is deeper than understanding. It is the knowing of yourself, the knowing of yourself before name and form, the knowing of yourself as the eternal, infinite presence of being. So as these words come, it is not to try to understand, not even to need to follow the words with the mind. It is to receive the resonance, just to receive the simple resonance, where you feel the truth, where there is recognition. Where there is recognition, there is an aliveness. There is an aliveness of the knowing that already knows. The only reason that there is any seeking, the only reason that there is a looking for the true being is because you already are the true being. You have never, ever not been yourself. And so as these words come, it is just to receive the subtle pointings that bring the remembering, the simple remembering of who you have always been. It is not a feeling of being anything other than yourself, being the very same self that you have always been. It is not to be looking for something different. The felt sense of being yourself here now does not change. It is just to relieve the felt sense of who you are from story, from name, from all the distractions of experience, and just to be yourself so simply, so incredibly simple. You come to the innocence. You come to the open, innocent equanimity that you are in truth, to the stillness, to the silent presence, simply being just as you are. The being is an aware being. The aware being is aware of all that is moving and changing. The aware being is aware of the thoughts that come and go, the feelings and sensations and tensions. The aware being is aware of everything that is moving and changing, aware of sense perception. But the aware being is not touched by anything that is moving and changing. The aware being is simply aware. The aware being just is. And this aware being is the true nature of all beings. It is an invitation to remember, an invitation to attune with the subtle resonance of the alive presence of being, the one that you are, the one that you have always been. The pure knowledge that supersedes any kind of worldly knowledge, the knowledge of yourself, the simple, pure knowing of who you are. And in the simple, pure knowing of who you are, all questions are answered. In the simple, true knowing of who you are, seeking ends, searching ends. Because all searching, all seeking is a seeking for yourself. Whether it seems to be a seeking for love, for God, for truth, for awakening, for enlightenment, whatever is being sought, whatever the words that come, all that is being sought is the deep, true, resounding knowing of who you are as the eternal, timeless being. You're seeking union with yourself, seeking oneness, seeking the knowing of who you are in truth before the story, before the whole play of life. All seeking is seeking to know the presence of being. All seeking is seeking to know the source of all that is moving and changing. All seeking is to know who you are in reality, to know reality. All seeking is seeking for the true self, the one that you have always been. There can seemingly be so many paths, but the seeking is for the one self, The seeking is for the one being. The seeking is to know who you are beyond question. And the answer is right here now. The answer is not in the future. The answer is not in a teaching. The answer is your own presence. The answer is the felt sense of just being here. And in the felt sense of just being here, you find yourself just as you have always been, a simple, aware presence, the awake field, the infinite, unbounded freedom that you have always been. Cannot find yourself in the moving changing, can only find yourself first as that which is witnessing, that which is watching the moving changing. But that which is watching, the aware being that is aware of the moving changing, the aware being is also very simply aware of itself. So where you feel awareness is where you are in truth. So where is awareness? As the pointings come, it is just to immediately receive the spontaneous aliveness of what is being pointed to. Where is awareness? Where is the aware being? Cannot find a location, but there is a simple knowing that awareness is here. How do you know awareness is here? Can only know awareness because you are awareness. Can only know the aware being because you are the aware being. The aware being that just simply is. The silence, the simplicity, the stillness of just being. So we come underneath the play of the world, underneath the moving, changing play of mind and thoughts, to discover the deep, silent presence that is ever present, always here, always simply now. And this is the felt sense of existence, the felt sense of simple existence, just being, just simply being. If there is someone looking to get something, it will act as an obstacle. It is to be here so fully here that you are the presence, that you are here as the presence, that you are not here as someone with ideas and concepts. If you are here as someone, then you will miss the whole point. It is to listen as no one. Listen as pure listening. Listening, listening, without knowing how, without understanding anything that is spoken. To just be so open, to fall so open, and just be here. Just simply be here. With no goals, no expectations, no interpretations, no concepts, no stories, no ideas, just to be here. to be here as openness, to be the open, receptive awareness, openly receiving. It's not even a conscious, grasping kind of receiving. It is the simple openness that can only receive, because openness is openly receptive, naturally. So you are the openness in truth. And so it is to openly receive yourself, openly receive yourself, openly receive the simplicity of who you are. Attuning to the simple presence that is underlying the moving, changing. Attuning to the simple presence that is the presence of being. Where is the attunement happening? The attunement is happening in the presence of now. The attunement is happening as a deep remembering of who you have always been, a deep remembering of the timeless nature, a deep remembering of the stillness, a deep remembering of the heart, a deep remembering that this is the simple presence that has always been here, the simple presence that has always been here underneath the play of the world, the simple presence that just is. Just to feel yourself here, to feel the simplicity of your own existence, just as you are, wanting nothing, desiring nothing. Simple presence just is. It has no tendrils reaching out, wanting, needing. Simple presence just is. Open, pure, pristine. You know this presence because this presence is who you are and who you have always been. Remember the peace. Remember the simple openness of just being. Just to fall into the resonance of remembering. As the words come, it is not to follow with the mind, trying to understand. If there is a trying to understand, it will act as a barrier. These words are your own heart, your own self, your own being speaking to call you in, speaking to remind you, this is who you are, underneath the play. Be here now. Be here now so fully present to your own presence. As you are here so fully present to your own presence, you are just simply being. Just simply being. And there's a remembering, a recognition that this is who you are, that you are the simple being, the stillness, the silence, the openness. The I am presence can come to the felt sense I am, I am, I am. Just simply being, simply being, simply being. And there's a resonant remembering, a remembering that is so pure, so empty of content, so empty of experience, and yet full of the knowing that this is who you are, before name, before story, before everything. Here you are, just as you are, just as you have always been. The self reminding itself, the self calling itself, remember, remember this truth. Remember that you have always been this pure, immaculate being, that you have never ever left yourself. You have never ever been tainted or touched in any way by the play of the world. The play of the world is just a creation. We could say a creation of the mind, but it is a creation of consciousness. It is a dance of consciousness dancing to experience itself. But here, underneath the dance of consciousness, the still, silent being, just simply being itself. What incredible grace. What incredible grace to be invited to know yourself, to know yourself, to know yourself, to remember yourself. Remember, remember, it is to turn into yourself, magically in the presence of your own presence, to turn into yourself, turn inward towards your own simple presence. And remember, when presence is looking at presence, when silence is looking at silence, the self is looking right in to its own simple I-ness, the amness, the isness, the I am presence that is the simple knowing. The I, the true I, looking into itself right now as the presence of being. There is a knowing. The knowing is, it's a boundless, limitless, wild, free knowing. It is not like the knowing knowledge of the mind. The knowing is alive. The knowing is so alive. And the knowing has always been here. And where you feel the resonance, you are touching into the knowing. You are touching into a remembering. And then it is just to let go. As soon as there is any quality of resonance, it is just to fall in and be carried. Be carried by the grace of your very own nature. Carried underneath the surface play of life. Be carried to the now, here, where you cannot find where you are. You do not know who you are, but you know you are here. You do not know what, you do not know where, but you can know your own presence. The presence is everywhere. It is unbounded. It is without limit. The boundless presence that is utterly still. It is the vast open spaciousness in which we could say all happening is happening. But we are not to be distracted with happenings right now. We are focused, divinely focused upon the self, divinely focused upon the being. So the aware being that can be aware of all that is moving and changing. The aware being is just simply being aware of itself. Awareness can still be subtly aware of the moving and changing, and yet awareness is nested, resting in itself, resting in its own aware nature, self-aware awareness. Awareness aware of itself, the self aware of itself. All seeking, all searching, all longing is the self longing for itself, the self seeking for itself, seeking to know itself. And so here, the self calling out to itself. Look this way, look towards yourself. Do not look out into the worldly expanse of the moving and changing and expect to find yourself. You have been caught. You are just a moving flow of consciousness that has got caught, cycling around at a singular point. But here, the call of the infinite expansive truth, the infinite expansive truth of who you are, the self calling out. This way, turn this way. Turn into yourself and know yourself. So when awareness turns away from the worldly, when the attention of awareness turns away from identifying with objects and the worldly play of experience, when attention of awareness turns towards itself, it drops in like into an alignment. It drops into itself, and awareness is simply aware of itself. There is a dropping in, a falling open, coming to the stillness, coming to the stop, and just simply being. Being the shining light that you have always been. Being the radiant light of the heart. Being the radiant silence that just is. The mind could never imagine that stillness, that silence, simplicity could be so rich and full. So the mind looks and says, there's nothing here. And this is why this truth is constantly overlooked. But when mind stops, awareness recognizes itself. The self remembers itself. The being recognizes its own beingness. And there's like a dawning. And the dawning brings a light, a shining light. And the shining light is the remembering of the radiance of your very own heart self, the very own self that you have always been. The remembering is the light that you are, the radiant light that is ever shining, effulgence, luminous, the exquisite light of the self, so bright within the knowing of itself, shining, shining, shining as itself. Where knowledge is pure, it's the aliveness of knowing that is the radiant shining of the self, just knowing itself. Where there is no mind, mind has collapsed. Mind is patterns of consciousness, and the patterns of consciousness collapse into the stillness, into the radiant, shining, aware being that you are. Nothing to understand, just to be here, just to be here as the openness, openly receiving yourself. And as deeply as you know yourself, you will fall right in. You will fall right in. Where there is an alive knowing, there is flow. There is an alive flow where there is a knowing. The knowing is the aliveness of being itself. Remember, feel how happy you are knowing yourself. Feel the simple joy. Feel the remembering of this happiness that is whole and pure and simple. Feel how this happiness has nothing to do with story. It is not based on things. It is not caused by experience. It is a causeless happiness that is the true nature. There's just a happiness and a joy because you are. Because you are. How extraordinary to be the divine presence of being, just simply being. Being free, being light, being love, being in absolute surrendered awe of yourself in every now, 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 this moment, now, fresh, ever alive, ever revealing. This is who you are. Never gets old because it is timeless. It is timeless truth. It is timeless wisdom that is ever present. It is not an experience that I have had before, and so I am hearing the same thing again. It never gets old. It's always fresh. Now, this is who you are, right? The happiness, the simplicity of the pristine, immaculate being that you are, ever free, ever true. You are the freedom. You are the stillness. You are the silence. You are not the someone that you have believed yourself to be, and you cannot possibly think your way out of that conundrum. There is nothing to do. It is just to be carried into the grace of true nature, just to be carried. How are you carried? You are carried by just attuning into the resonance. Where you feel a resonance of truth, let go into that like a warm, vast, infinite ocean. Who wouldn't want to let go into a vast, infinite ocean of light, of naturalness, of freedom, of love, of grace? Who wouldn't want to let go of the whole story, the whole drama, and just merge, melt into the infinite wideness, the infinite timelessness of just being yourself? What a conundrum for the mind, because there is no way of doing anything. You cannot do it. You cannot try harder. You cannot give it any more. It is to let the doer bring you to this moment where you can feel the simplicity of being. And where you can feel the simplicity of being, you feel the simplicity of being. You feel it is alive. Where there is a quality of recognition, of resonance, of a knowing, oh yes, this. Do not move back to the mind where the mind says, is this it? Have I got it? Do not give it in any way to the mind. Just feel the simple, mysterious pull of yourself being pulled, magnetically pulled into a deeper remembering. Just let go of the edge. Let go of any sense of edge. Let go of any sense of being someone, of being bound, of having an edge. Just let go. How do you let go? You have to not know how and be in the not knowing how, right? That's the surrender. You do not know how to let go of the edge. But when you feel a quality within that says, I don't know how to let go, you're in a kind of surrender where you say, how, I don't know. You come to the edge where there is like a hopelessness for the someone saying, I don't know how, I don't understand, I feel frustrated. So that is wonderful. Be right here at the edge and just don't know anything. Don't know anything. Don't know who you are. Don't know where you are. Don't know what you are. Just be here in utter surrender, where the only prayer is take me into the flow of grace, where the only prayer is saying humble me Humble me. Take me into you, whatever you are. Take all of me into you. Leave nothing, leave nothing, leave no trace, leave no trace. Let me know this truth of who I am. Carry me all the way into the self that I am. So as these words come, it is just to feel the resonance, where you feel an aliveness, where you feel an attunement, where you feel a quality of remembering. And wherever you feel that quality, it is to fall into that openness, that attunement. Drop everything else. Do not try to make sense of everything. Do not try to understand. Do not try to be a good student. It will fail you every time. Every time you try to be good, every time you try to get it, it will fail you, because goodness is your true nature. It is just to be the goodness that you are, to know that you are enough, you are pure, immaculate, pristine being. You couldn't be more good. You couldn't be more than you are, because you are wholeness. You are wholeness in truth. And there is a part of you that knows this. Underneath the stories of lack, of something missing, the wholeness of who you are is already whole and resonantly remembering itself. So we cannot pretend that you are someone with a mission, because it would not be true. We cannot pretend that you have something missing. We cannot endorse the stories of lack. We cannot endorse the stories at all, because you are wholeness. You are wholeness in the beingness that you are. Yes, we have ways of speaking about life on the surface. We have ways, of course. We speak of the relative, the humanness. We speak of the brokenness. We speak of it all, because it is all part of the wholeness. But we do not speak to it from the story of me that believes in separation. Here, the wholeness. Here, no separation. There is no separation. Separation is the illusion, and the invitation is to see through the illusion of separation. And when there is a seeing through the illusion, there is an end to delusion. Delusion is the mind's interpretation of separation. Delusion is the story that plays out the suffering of misery of the me trying and trying to win in a game of life, that there can be no winner. But the good news is there is also no loser. It is just a game. It's a game that you cannot win and you cannot lose, but it is like a constant, perpetual looping game that will keep you. It will keep you being drawn in. It will feed you ideas that you can win, and then you'll chase the ideas that you can win, and then you will be disappointed, and you will feel like you have lost, and you will feel like you have lost, and something is missing, and you are not enough, and you will feel like, now I have to scrape myself back up out of the pile of misery I am, and try to find another way of winning this game, right? It's a perpetual play. It is a cycle of misery. It is the play of karma. It's a divine tragedy. We could dare to say a divine comedy, but the ego doesn't think it's very funny. And so, we have to see it for what it is. We have to see it from the true perspective. We have to see it from the zoomed out, big picture. We have to see it as the self, the light of awareness that is illuminating the whole view, illuminating the whole view, that it reveals the illusion of separation. It reveals the illusion of the appearance on the surface of life. And when it is revealed in the light of awareness, then you are living as life itself, but you are not stuck in the story of separation. So the words come not to offer another possibility that is akin to this play of pain and pleasure, the cycle of joy and misery. It's bigger than that. This offering, it isn't an illusory offering. It's not offering something that you are not already. And that is the incredible grace. The mind might say, oh, well, it's very easy for you to speak of this, but it feels so elusive. I long for it, but I cannot get it. I have been longing for this for so many years, but I cannot get it. It is because there is someone wanting it. So we are offering here an invitation to remember, an invitation that isn't offering something to someone. The invitation is the outstretched hand of your very own heart. It's as if your very own heart is reaching out and calling you in. It's as if the light that you are, the light of God within, is shining, blinking, saying, over here, this way, turn inward. It is as if everything that you are, your very own wholeness, your very own self that already knows, is saying, please, please, turn this way. Turn away from looking in the external. Turn away from imagining that you can get something in the worldly. Turn into yourself. Be still, be silent, be here, and know the glory that you are. Be still, be here, be the being, and know the glory that you are. Be humbled into utter surrender, where there is only the song of silence that is falling into its own remembering. Can feel when the field of silence, the field of being, is enlivened. Can feel the sense of yourself fuller, richer, bigger, brighter. And it is like a remembering. It is remembering who you have always been. It is so familiar. It is so familiar. And yet there is no one here. The lights are on. The lights are shining bright. But this light is the eternal light. It is the blazing fire of the self that is ever, ever shining. The light that is always shining. You can feel it. It is consuming, all encompassing. It is an emptiness, and yet this emptiness is full of a divine knowing. It is an emptiness, and yet there is a brightness here, a brilliance here of the self shining in the knowing of itself. This is not an exclusive offer. It's an all-encompassing offer to know yourself, to be still, be silent, so that that which falls into silence, into stillness, remembers that you are the silence, you are the stillness, You are not someone that is silent. You are more intimate with yourself than even that. You are stillness. You are the being. You are the silent freedom. You are the silent peace that is ever abiding in itself. You are the immaculate, immortal, invincible, pristine being. And you always have been. You have never ever left yourself. The moment of the human birth did not carry you away from yourself. The moment of the human birth, you remained exactly as you have always been. And underneath the play of the human life, you have remained in every moment of the play of time. You have remained as the timeless, eternal being. You have never been touched by anything that has happened in the play of the human life. Underneath, you have remained as your own silent companion. You have remained as love. You have remained as silent peace. You have remained as happiness that has ever evaded all sense of suffering on the surface of life. You have never, ever been born. You have only ever been the aliveness of life, and the aliveness of life is ever alive as itself. The aliveness of life is eternal. The aliveness of life never dies. The aliveness of life is what animates the form. The aliveness of life is what gives the appearance of the world. The aliveness of life is what dances as consciousness. But the aliveness of life never ever takes form, never takes a position. The aliveness of life is a flow of alive life. It is a wild and pristine flow of alive life. And the aliveness of life is eternal, is timeless. And this is who you truly are. And this is who you have always been. And it is this timeless, eternal self that is speaking right now to itself, saying, remember, you may think you got tangled up in a play of consciousness. You may think that you got tangled up, but you have never ever been tangled in the web of life in the way that the individual imagines. You have never ever left yourself. And the invitation is just to remember. Remember who you have always been. Remember the simple, silent, still presence. The simple being that you have always been. Remember the light that has always, always been shining, its brilliance, its radiance. This is the self, the heart that is shining, shining its radiance. This radiance is shining inside you. It is shining as the eternal flame. It is shining as that which has never ever been touched. We could say it is the spark of God, the spark of the divine within. And when you turn towards the spark of the divine within, you fall into the remembering of being the divine being. Yes, the play on the surface of life continues to play out, but the perspective of seeing it shifts. So you are seeing from a different perspective when you are seeing from the self. You are not the me that is seeing from a narrow perspective. You are the vast, open freedom. You are seeing the full picture. You can see the character that you have played. You can see that one. You can feel, you can have a multi-sensory experience of that one. And yet you are aware of yourself being everywhere. You are no longer limited to a single point. You can feel yourself just in the way that you have always felt yourself. But when you really look for yourself, you find yourself everywhere. You find yourself as the infinite field. You find yourself as the boundless spaciousness. And you are not limited to being the body or the mind in the way that has been imagined. You are the aliveness of life everywhere. You are the flow of life everywhere. And you are animating the form. You can feel now you are animating the form of the character that you are playing on the surface of life. And yet you are everywhere. Perhaps you can start to feel that you are in everything. You start to feel the essence nature. Your essence nature is the essence nature of everyone. That where there is the essence, there is a sameness. That the appearance on the surface of life, it looks different. But you know your essence. And when you know your essence, you are meeting in the oneness. You are meeting underneath the play of the world, in the vast spaciousness of the infinite field. That is peace. That is happiness. Remember this simple truth. Remember this wholeness. Remember this one that you have always been. Remember the wholeness of being, the whole presence, the whole happiness, right? It is causeless happy, causeless peace, causeless joy, a contentment, an equanimity, a sense of balance and harmony right now in this moment. Do not allow the mind to say, oh, well, I'm feeling that now, but what about? That is the distraction, that is the interceptor. Just to fall into yourself here, now. And the deeper that you fall into yourself here now, you fall into remembering, you fall into the simple knowing, where you just are being. Nothing else is needed. Everything else is miraculously, divinely taking care of itself. Just to be here, be still, be the silent peace, and know yourself. Be the simple, silent knowing. And where there is knowing, there is a flow. The flow is the flow of grace, and the flow of grace gives rise to the appearance. We could say, if you follow everything back to the source, you find the self, you find the light, you find the knowing. And then you can see that the aliveness of the knowing, it flows as consciousness. It flows, can flow in a very pure way as consciousness, giving rise to the appearance on the surface of life. So then we are speaking of a flow of life that is freedom, is life flowing within life. It is a simple, unconditioned life just flowing within itself. Of course, the play of life will play out discordant patterns. The discordant patterns play out to humble and humble and humble away all of the pieces that can create identification. But that too, of course, is the flow of grace. It's all a flow of grace. It's all part of the oneness. There is nothing that is not the wholeness. The wholeness is the divine reality, and there's nothing outside of that. Nothing outside of that. So in this speaking, we are bridging many different perspectives, because within the opening, we can see from slightly different perspectives as we open and blossom and flower. But the full perspective is wholeness. And wherever you are in this opening into yourself, you can feel a quality of wholeness. You can feel a sense of knowing, can feel where awareness is. And where awareness is where you are in truth. Where knowing is the knowing of yourself, pure knowing, pure knowledge. It's the true wisdom. It's the aliveness of intelligence. Where you can feel wholeness. It is exactly the same wholeness that is totality. It is exactly the same wholeness that is divinity. It might just be a flavor of it, but that flavor gets richer, deeper, brighter. But where you feel that flavor, it's to drink it in, to really taste it, really drink it in, taste it by falling into the knowing, falling into the resonance. You drink it in, and as you drink it in, you are drinking in the nectar of knowing. And the nectar of the knowing is what feeds the blissful remembering of deeper values of yourself. It's an inside job. It's all happening inside. Inside, we could say, your own consciousness. It's happening inside your own pure consciousness. It's happening inside your own awareness. And it's happening inside your own divine wholeness. This is the divine reality. There's nothing outside. It is a miraculous, intelligent unfolding. And it is all naturally happening. It is just to receive the graced invitation to be here, to be here. Be humbled into grace. Be humbled into this moment where there is a surrender, where you can feel that inner yes, that inner resonance, that inner longing, that which is just singing, yes, yes, yes. Take me all the way, take me all the way. Bring me into this remembering. Let me be carried. Let every fiber of me-ness surrender into oneness. Let the prayer, the humble prayer, bubble up from your own knowing. Let the humble prayer bubble up like an effulgent spring out of your true longing, out of your devotion. Let the true prayer bubble up, and let this prayer be the offering again and again and again. Be the offering, be the humble offering at the altar of now. We could say, let be the humble offering at the altar of life, because life is a flow of grace. There is nothing outside. All of life, even the crazy wilds of the surface of life, it is all here to support the humbling. It is all here to support the purification of mind, to collapse the patterns of discordant patterns of consciousness that can create a sense of separation to erode them, melt them, humble them into the remembering of oneness, a remembering of union. And so as these words come, right here, right now, who are you? Where are you? Feel the freedom that you are. You do not have to even know how you got here, because falling into yourself is a spontaneous disappearance of the me. It's a spontaneous disappearance of mind. And here you are. You fell through the cracks, and here you are. Just to feel the simplicity, just to feel the happiness, just to feel the joy here now. Do not try to imprint this moment into a future. Do not wonder. Just be here and do not leave. Be here and stay here. Stay here in this divine resonance of remembering who you are. Feel the silence. Drink it in. Feel the stillness. You are the stillness. Feel the peace that is causeless. You are the field of peace. Feel the wholeness. Feel that felt sense that this moment there is nothing missing, that you just are, just simply being, just simply being. Remember, remember.